How much is left on this track? 2 whole minutes. Oh God. I wonder if people know what that track is. Probably not. They're a big band. I don't know. Maybe. I Fight Dragons. Great group. Big fan. Big fan. All right, let me move some of these windows around so I can see here. All right, do. Ooh, now we're in the Fraggle Rock soundtrack. Okay, I can work with this. It's time to let the music. Nope, that's the Muppets. Close enough. It's time to light the lights. It's time to get things started on the Winkle Show tonight. Doom. Well, while we're waiting for people, possibly, I'm going to read from the Gobbledygook Bible and a few more entries to get the ideas flowing. As I said last week, this was the Bible that they found in the Gobbanoid Fortress, and I've been slowly translating and transliterating and able to read. So each couple sessions, they would get one entry. And unfortunately, by the time that the campaign petered out, which is only a session or two after we talked this week, they really only got one more entry. So what I read last week is all that they ever got. But next piece. Maglubiet looked out upon his Demesna and was finally pleased. He took a short rest to restore his vigor and fitness. When he roused again, he saw that the bugbears had watched his rest and taken it to mean sloth was acceptable. They had grown lazy and passive. This was unacceptable, and another example must be made. Maglubiet made Grunkle a bugbear god of strength and ferocity. Grunkle demanded skulls from the bugbears. Whether from them or others, he did not care. Thus were the bugbears brought to heel again. Hail Maglubiet! Hail Grunkle! Grunkle was powerful and demanded the same from bugbears, but they were not an army to send off on campaign. The bugbears were ambushers and harriers. They needed a god to remind them of the shadows. Maglubiet made Hrugek alongside Grunkle. Hrugek strolled the bugbears' alertness and gave them nothing. Hrugek now lies awake, ever watching, and ensuring the bugbears fight in the way they are able. Hail Maglubiet! Hail Hrugek! The bugbears were again fearsome and fearful for the wrath of their gods. That fear manifested their old superstitions back from rest. Their dread created Skigaret, the god of bugbear ruination and decay. Skigaret was not created by Maglubiet, and even he was fearful for the first time in creation. That fear was easily conquered by such a calamitous god as he. Maglubiet now uses Skigaret. It keeps fear in the heart of bugbears. Skigaret warns bugbears that if they are not fearsome, they will be fearful. Hail Maglubiet, dread Skigaret. Just a little more. Give you the idea. I really wanted this to be something that the players, not just the characters, would find interesting. And if anything, the players might find more interesting than the characters necessarily. And it was meant to really kind of push them to learn about this world. Whether you engage with it, again, that's up to you. I can't make someone pay attention in class, but I can make them aware of the material. What you decide to do with it, hey, there you go. So last week we talked about the refugees and getting them from Lori to Blackstone, and navigating the long passage therein, the days worth of travel, that they didn't exactly interact with them as much as I wanted to, but that's the way it goes. I can have plans all day long, but if my players aren't into it, it's not going to happen. Doesn't matter how much I like it. If they don't like it, it's not the way it's going to go. So they spent some time. They met a couple of them. They scared a couple of them, and then moved on. I didn't really have time for all that nonsense. That was fine. But then they came to Blackstone. They met a lieutenant of the guard outside who tentatively allowed them into the city to meet the king and to plead their case, for the king to make his choice. So the beginning of this session is them being led through town into the center, and they can kind of see that the city's kind of one big wheel with a central spoke, the central spire that goes almost up to the top of this enormous, magnificent, huge cavern carved out of the middle of the mountain, with a diamond in the center, and just below the diamond is the top of this spire. And they are led to that spire. Along the way, they ask, things about the king and the city, and they aren't told a whole lot. That if I remember correctly, they asked things like, what's the king like? Oh, he's very magnanimous. He's very, generous, but also reluctant. Obviously, he values our privacy and our safety above all things. And then they asked them about the city, not a whole lot. As they got closer to the tower, Small's player asked me, okay, what do I know about dwarven society? I'm a collector of stories. I know about all these different people. What do I know about the dwarves? And I said, okay, give me a history roll. And natural 20. Perfect timing. So I said, okay, you know pretty much anything there is to know. You always respected the dwarves, even though you are not a very lawful person, you're not a very, orderly person, they are, and there's something to respect there. So just how to bow to a superior, and how to say hello, and how to greet someone, a stranger or a friend. And so I said, yeah, you pretty much whatever you want to know, And the player said, okay, she's getting ready to talk to this king, knowing that he doesn't want them there. He's scared of them, if anything. They know the secret of where they are, and that's a problem. That's scary. This is a place that has stayed safe by its secrecy. And she said, okay, I want a story, or something that, no, wait, did she say that? No, I said, okay, with the 20, tell me something about the Dwarven Society. I've just given you kind of an idea about them being, very orderly and very ordered, very, very tiered in class structure. But tell me something about them. And she said, ooh, okay. Now, I did this for a number of reasons, namely because it gets my players involved with my world. And let me tell you, with the right player, my sister is the right player. With the right player, there is nothing better than saying, tell me something about this place. It's actually a classic thing of RPGs in the, God, like shortly after, I guess it was mid 2010s, maybe, the Firefly RPG came out. And Firefly RPG used what they called plot points. And plot points were a point system, kind of like action points in fourth edition, or anything. You've got this pool of stuff that you can use. Plot points were not, gain a small bonus to this roll. They could be used for that purpose, but the real power was to spend a few of them and say, there is this thing in this scene. Oh, we're running away. Oh, look, there's a perfect trash can for me to throw over so that the people behind me have to hop over it. Whatever. It was the replacement for those lucky moments, because it was replicating a TV show, and TV shows are filled with those lucky moments. This is that same idea. It's a plot point. I'm giving you the opportunity to insert something here that can help you if you want. And she said, okay. She said, and I didn't tell her that, but she got it. It was known, like, this is an opportunity for me, not just to influence this world and have a fun story, but to possibly help us in our short endeavor here. And she said, okay. Long, long ago, and no one knows if this is true or myth, but long ago, the two small races, the dwarves and halflings, resided in a close by valley. They resided together in many ways. The halflings bearded on their feet, and the dwarves bearded on their face. And the two races shared space, but something happened. And it's not known. If you go village to village, they'll tell different stories of the halfling that stole gold, or the dwarf that insulted insulted a halfling, and how the story goes changes. Something happened, and they split, and suddenly this village is no more. Now it's two, and the valley is split down the middle, like the Hatfields and McCoys. She said, okay, but one day there was a halfling that was a collector of stories, and they were a bard, and they told stories, and they went out into the middle between in the valley, and cried out and told the stories of the past, and of their wars with other larger races, of taking down giants and destroying elven lords and dragons. And it was all because they were together. And that togetherness brought them back and brought them stronger than they were ever before, because they remembered this history that they had. I said, ooh, okay, I like that. And I wrote it down. As she's telling it, I wrote down little notes. I said, okay, halfling, dwarf, shared village, split, some reason. It's not a lot of notes, but it's enough to jog my memory. And that's something that I've learned over years how to do. Not everyone necessarily is going to know exactly what notes work for them, but this one really worked for me. And so they go into this meeting, and I described, they enter into the center of the spire, and it's just a huge open space. You can see straight up, much like the magical tower back in Lori, but there's no winding staircase around the outside. Instead, you can see this red square in the center, and there's a small desk in front. And there's a young dwarf. Beards haven't really grown out. It's just, a little bit below their chin right now. And the dwarf pops up and sees all the guards leading them in, and says, oh, okay. How can I help you? And the guards tell them, they're here to see the king. Please call down the ascender. And okay. And the dwarf is just harried and scarried, and finally presses the proper buttons, and down out of the ceiling, hundreds of feet above you, you can see this square of wood just descending down, an elevator. But describing things, I think, can be really fun. Describing the the fantasy version of something is something that I really enjoy. So, I described the fantasy version of an elevator. If you're not that type of person, just say the fantasy version elevator. Nothing wrong with that, personally. I firmly believe in sometimes just saying, it's the fantasy version of an elevator. And everybody goes, yes, of course, the fantasy version elevator. What else would that be? And so, of course, they see it descend, and the guards all, tell them, oh, okay, just step on here. There's no guardrails or anything like that. It's just this slab of wood, and Smalls is terrified, being small, at going that high up into the air, and Matt is loving it and is like dancing around and jumping up and down and seeing if it'll move, and it doesn't. He's that asshole in an elevator, and they ascend up into the ceiling, and as they ascend in, they can see this huge chamber, and the chamber seems to echo, but it echoes very quickly. So it's not a echo, 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 echo. It's echo, 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 echo. And what it does is it makes someone speaking loudly and firmly feel more imposing. Their voice is booming. Their voice is commanding. It's that classic amphitheater, the same idea of being able to stand in one spot and sing, and all the people, even back in the nosebleeds, can hear you. Same idea here. Want to feel imposing and special and unique. And they see at the far end of this long carpet a single dwarf sitting on a black iron throne. There's 5 thrones here. He is not sitting in the center. He's actually sitting off one to the side. And then there are 3 on this side and 1 over there. And luckily, Smalls knows a thing or two about this, that the city of Blackstone is typically ruled by 5 kings. The king of war, coin, words, and people. And then the high king to settle disputes between the other 4. And where this king is sitting is the king of war. But he's the only one there. And that's not normal, especially for an audience that could be important, like someone, breaching security and safety. Though if only one king was to attend, that would be the king that would make the most sense. And so they approach, bowing properly because Smalls knows exactly how. And each time something's happening in this meeting, I'm just giving little ticks. I've got a check mark and an X. And those might be very subtle on my paper. They might even just be, so even if you can see my hand moving here, you're not quite entirely sure what my hand is doing. And so that allows me to, just quickly notate how things are going without saying, yep, he's feeling good. Nope, he's feeling bad. Could the players make insight checks during? Yeah, but if I'm doing my job right, they're going to be so entranced with it that maybe they don't think of it immediately. And maybe afterwards they go, oh man, insight checks. We could think about this shit, But luckily, Smalls knows, what he's doing pretty well here, and is able to, to interact with him. I apologize. Apparently I'm more tired than I thought. If there's someone actually watching, they should type in chat so that I can be aware that someone's actually watching. So they begin speaking with the king. Smalls is like, guys, just my job. I got this. And steps forward, introduces himself, the full name, Casmo T-Spark, known as Smalls, God Touched. Hey, Table Talk, good to see ya. And introduces the rest of the party naturally, and says, "We are here to seek passage." And we discussed a little bit in, kind of last session. I asked near the end, what do you really want out of this meeting? If you got everything you wanted from this king, what would it be? And they were like, I mean, 1,000,000 gold. It's like, okay, no, reasonably. And they said, honestly, we just want to get through. We just want to go up to the elves. We think that there's something going on up there. The god said, go to the evil beyond the mountains. Well, we went beyond those mountains. We found some evil, but I feel like that's not everything. And there's got to be something more. Well, there's mountains here. Maybe they meant these mountains. They're being all cryptic and shit. So who even knows? And so they they get the they talk to the dwarf king, and they're like, okay, all we really want is to go past Blackstone. We will not share its secret. If there is some way for you to, I don't know, wipe the memory from our mind or something like that, we'll do it. Whatever we have to do, we'll do it. Hi, buddy. Hi. Yes, I know, Zeus. I know. But what? Yes. Okay. Not right now. Can you go bother her? That'd be great. All right, go lay down, buddy. Go lay down. And assistance in war. Yeah, but they didn't know that yet. And so they're talking with the king, and the king has his own thoughts. I know what he wants, and he has a relatively rich and storied past. Something terrible has happened before, and he knows it, and he knows the things that are going on around him. He knows the things that are going on in him. He's not necessarily going to share that, though, and no amount of persuasion and deception checks are really going to make him share that information. It's really only if his back is pressed against the wall and he's got nothing else to do that he's really going to tell them everything. And he says, okay, well, if I'm going to let you through, and this actually, I wasn't quite the voice that I used for him, because my intention for him, and again, this is one of those little tricks, I took my time with his words. It's not that he speaks slowly, it's that he takes pauses between sentences. He sits back for a moment and says, okay, if you're going to pass through, then I will know more about you. And he said, you've told me your names, but I can tell you are touched by some god. What is that god? And they all said, Pelor and Melora, the god of sun, healing, and goodness, and the goddess of, the wilderness and the wild. Okay. That one in the helmet. Why is that abomination in my throne room? And the players all lost it as I stared straight at Sunshine and said, why is that abomination in my throne room? None of them have been exposed enough to elven culture to know enough to pinpoint why the hell he would say something like this. Sunshine takes off her helmet and says, I am Sunshine of the Occult Crescendo. Now of the New Haven survivors. I come with them. I come for the same reasons. I am not certain that I am God touched, but I am, looking for the same things that they are, to eliminate evil and do good deeds. That is not what I asked you. I asked all of you, why is this abomination in my throne room? What unholy thing decided to pair two races together in such a way as to create that. And all of them are just like, this asshole. This is one of the things about this world that I've really enjoyed. The people here are xenophobic. I mean, incredibly xenophobic, to a point of racism, straight up. You know, but the other thing they haven't really learned yet is the elves here are not humans with long ears. And they never did, because the game didn't go on any much longer. But the forest elves, um the green elves are, they look green, first of all, literally, and they have 6 ears that grow out of their head, and no eyes here. They actually have eyes on the inside of their palms, that can move between the inside and outside of their palms, so that when they're holding something, the eye moves around to the other side and they see with that instead. And they have no hair typically, or if they have hair, it grows straight out of the top like a tree, like a canopy. And that's the thing, is the elves here are not just long-eared humans that maybe are haughty. No, they are aliens. They are fairies. They are strange and weird and live for hundreds of years and make no damn sense. And one of those, breeding with a human, is vile. Not just to the elf, but to the human. Not even 50 years ago, there was a huge war between the two, so massive as to shake the geopolitics of this entire continent. And now you're going to make kids? Huh! You know? That's terrifying. That's not even talking about the high elves or the light elves that are literally just motes of light. When they manifest a physical form, that's their choice. Normally, they are just motes of light in the air that shine and move around weird. They don't even communicate using spoken language. The elves are alien, xenophobic little bastards. Now, do the players know that bringing a half-elf in here is strange and weird and wrong, and how dare you present such a thing to my regal self? No. But that's the point. Sometimes one of the best ways to push your players to, know that there is, more going on here, is just to present it to them. Make them engage with it, because if they don't, it's not going to end well for them. Now that doesn't mean they couldn't have gotten out of here. It would have sucked, but they could have gotten out of here. If they'd really started shit, the guards would have shot him and knocked him unconscious and dragged him off to jail, and then there'd have to be a jailbreak episode, and that'd probably lead to some other things or whatever, and they just wouldn't be welcome to Blackstone anymore. And that's fine. That's the path that they chose to take. And that is one of the wonderful things about Dungeons and Dragons, or any tabletop role-playing game, is the ability to face the consequences in the path that you choose, because there is no chosen path. There is no dialogue tree that says this is the only way. But they didn't. They were very cordial, and Smalls and the king banter back and forth for a bit about how they did not know that this was something horrifying. They are simply from a small town. They suffered this horrifying tragedy. That's what caused the gods to find them and to grant them these powers that they now hold. They know nothing of these politics and all of these things with the elves and the half elves. They know of the war, but that is it. And they know that the elves are mysterious and strange, but they've never met one or even really heard a whole lot more about them. And so the king said, okay, I will think on this. Give me a day. Come back here tomorrow at noon, and we will talk. You will know noon by the brightness of the diamond in the sky. It waxes and wanes in brightness. When it is at its brightest, you will come back here. In the meantime, we will house you. I have a row of homes for dignitaries and ambassadors and the like. My guards will show you to one of those, and you will have somewhere to bed down this evening. Go lay down, buddy. Go lay down. Go lay down. All right, good boy. And so he kind of sent them away, and said we will discuss this further, and just kind of left it at that. And so they went out. They headed back to to their new home for the evening. And I said, it's late, but it's not late enough that you feel tired. Honestly, today has been very exciting. You got shown in. You've seen so many wonders. You're kind of, restless. What would you all like to do? And so I just went around the table one at a time. Urza, what are you going to do? Matt, Takko, so on and so forth, down the line. So Urza decided to head off to the library and see and learn some about Dwarvish culture and history, and see if she could learn more about Blackstone and this strange city and all the crazy things going on here. And Sunshine headed off to the temples because she believes in saying hello to the local gods and also seeing who's worshipped here. And Smalls decided to follow along with her so that they could connect, because Smalls felt like Sunshine, like this whole abomination thing, like that's weird. Like, what's going on with that whole thing? And I want to know more about that. But also, like, Sunshine, you're not useless. You do know your stuff. And even though you may be naive, I want to know more about you. So they went off on their own little thing. And Matt went to explore the city? ? I feel like that sounds right. And just kind of went to gather information, basically. And right, Matt went to the magic shop. Yes, because he was looking for some way to do a particular thing. And Takko decided to hire some prostitutes. So we'll go in order. So Urza heads to the library. And what I did for all of these was, I went in order, but if there was ever a lull in the scene, a roll to be had, something like that, skip to the next one. Okay, give me this roll, hold what the number is, we'll get back to you, and run on to the next one. So the action never stops. Whenever there's a pause where you would ask for something, that's when you move on to the next thing. And this just keeps everything rolling along, and it keeps feeling like the scene is going, even though it's jumping between these 5 different people. This is the way the movies do it. It's the way the TV does it. When you've got your crests and valleys, hills and valleys. When you hit a valley, you skip up to the next hill, and you're constantly doing this. And so, word stuff things. So Urza heads off to the library. I have her make some rolls. She finds a book about the history of Blackstone. It doesn't take a lot to find that, and starts reading. And I said, okay, I'm going to get you a lot of information in a little bit. Move on to the next one. Matt decides to head to a magic shop, meets a thoroughly uninterested halfling of the Honeybrook family. The Honeybrooks, as I mentioned in episode 1, were established by one of my first players that played a halfling, and she established they are a family across the continent that makes honey and makes mead. And we kind of, throughout the campaign, made this family the richest, the wealthiest, the highest class family in this entire continent. They have wealth beyond imagining. And I established, okay, well, your family just owns a sixth of Blackstone. This wheel pattern that they have, these 6 spokes and wheels, they own one of those. And that is the Honeybrook Mansion, is that whole space. And so, he heads off to this magic shop because they own most of the magic and most of the sales of magic that happen on this continent. And so so they head out and start talking, and he's trying to get this or that, and kind of finds out that magic is not just expensive, it's incredibly expensive. It is rare, it is hard. um he he luckily had a bit of an ace up his sleeve. We'll get to that later. And then Sunshine and Smalls head off to the Temple District, where they encounter Temple de Pellar, and they say, "Oh, we should check in on old buddy Pelly." Or no, was it Pellar or was it a different one? No, that's what it was. They see all these temples. Doors are open, all this, and they find one that just seems particularly enticing, and they're not sure what it is about it. And they go in, and it's empty. Normally if you go into one of these temples, you'll see a priest or someone to tell you of, tell you how to um how to worship and what to do, and maybe help you with whatever problem is ailing you. But it's just dead quiet. There's no dust. The pews are a plain brown tinged wood. And at the end, up at the altar, there is a strange statue. It seems to shift in form as you look at it. As you look up at the arm, you lose sight of the leg, and you look down at the leg, and it's now the leg of a ram. But then you look up at the other arm that you couldn't see before, and it's now shorter than it was before. The other one is long. It's always out of proportion. The head is never quite the same in countenance or shape. And they're just like, what the fuck is this place? This is weird. The altar is black as night and composed of some material they can't even tell what. And there's like, look, we gotta, like, we should go. We should go. And as they leave, the door is shut behind them, and they hear, namely, Smalls hears, "It was good to see you again, Casmo." And about loses her damn mind. He's like, "Ollie, you son of a bitch. Okay, no, we are figuring some way out back in there." And the door is locked. It's completely locked. And they're like, okay, there has to be some way in there. That little bastard has been hounding me. I wanted to ask him questions for a while now, and he hasn't been answering. And it's, of course, Alidamara that had appeared to her, to Smalls before, when he was granted his powers and his abilities. And so they look around the temple, and they finally find this like trap door looking thing up on the roof. So they have to figure out how to get up to the roof. They get up to the roof, and they find this trap door. And as they enter, it opens to a sea of stars. And even before they step inside, if they then look around, they find that they are in it. Simply by opening the door, they have stepped inside. And we pause there on them. And so then we got to Takko going to find prostitutes. Thoroughly succeeds. He finds the seedy part of town. He finds, gambling and pickpockets and bars and whorehouses and all the things that he can imagine. Finally finds this pair of prostitutes and pays them a little bit of money. Yes, the Honeybrooks are doing very well, Table Talk. Table Talk originally played one of the two halflings in this game, and married the other halfling player, the Honeybrook player, to get her out of her family, constantly going, "Where are you? What's going on?" Blah, 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 blah. It was a great time. It was a good group. It was a good adventure. But so Takko finds some prostitutes and hires them, pays them like 10 or 15 gold, something like that. And the rest of the players are like, "Wait, how much do you have?" have, because they all have like 8, 10, maybe. And he just like throws this gold down like it's nothing. And this is when they all realize, like, whoa, this dude's loaded. What? When? And both him and I were just like, hey, he's really good as a he's really good at just, selling drugs, man. Like, dude's loaded, Um so he brings the prostitutes back to the place where they're staying because he's an idiot. And I said, okay, okay, give me a constitution save to see how good you are at the fucking. And he gives that, and it's thoroughly unimpressive. And I was like, all right, it was fine. They had a good time. Whatever. We'll get back to you. And go back to Urza. Urza has found this book. She's read a little bit, not a lot. She doesn't have a lot of time, and it's dense. It is, full on theirs and these, and thusly this happened to this person who was begat by that person. But she kind of slowly figures out a little bit of it, that the dwarves split once into the dwarves of the mountains and the dwarves of the hills. The dwarves of the mountains decided to burrow into this great cavern and to carve it out and to create Blackstone. And they said, as this city was built by many hands, so too shall it be governed, and instituted the policy of having 5 kings: the king of coin, king of words, king of the people, and the king of war, and the high king above them to settle disputes. And she wasn't able to get a whole lot more than that before becoming tired and needing to just head back and go to bed. So she heads back. We get to Matt, who's been at the magic shop and talked with them, and tells the person, okay, look, I don't have that kind of money to just throw around, all right? But I have information. I have information that will make your family millions. Millions. But I need to talk to someone who has, like, the power to make that decision. And the Honeybrook is like, yeah, okay, fine. Like, how good is this information? He's like, well, it's a passageway to get to the other side of the core mountains in half the time. He's like, whoa, that is impressive, Um, all right, okay. He pulls out this tablet of stone and presses some buttons on it, and suddenly next to him appears a older woman with wet hair, you know, and I do the classic, oh, I just got out of the shower, why would you interrupt me? The head of the Honeybrook family being called here. I told you only to call me if this is very important. Why would you do this with an outsider here? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? Kind of smack upside the head on the the dirty cousin who just runs the magic shop. And so they proceed to discuss and share, because Zach, the player who plays Matt, had possibly the best idea that I've ever had from a group that run this adventure. No one before had said, this Goblin Fortress, this is commerce. This is a way to get around these mountains in a week and a half less than it would be to go all the way around, and then back to where you're trying to get to. This will save so much money to get to the other side of the mountains. And he successfully negotiates with them and says what he wants. Zach, the player, just reminded me, this is where Matt has his big sociopath moment, and he just drains of emotion. And the cousin that he was talking with was just like, uh-huh, yeah. And Zach was like, yep, okay. You want this thing? Okay. There you go. And they were both just emotionless little husks together. It was a scene. It was a good time. And it was a nice way to connect with the player, and have a moment with a character that doesn't have a lot of moments. It doesn't have a lot of emotional connection to things that are going on. Unlike Smalls, it's very easy to connect to Smalls. Smalls wants to hear about the lore and the strangeness and the mysteries. And Matt wants to hear, he wants to have combat encounters and kill goblins and burn things down, So this was a nice little touch to have with him. And so they get all that negotiation out of the way, and we cut over to Smalls and Sunshine, and they meet Alidamara in his Demesna. Now, before, Alidamara had only appeared to Smalls as a collection of stars, and now suddenly manifests in full body. And Smalls can see that this god, this creature, is misformed and mal-shaped. 2 arms, different lengths from each other, one covered in fur, one covered in feathers. 2 legs, one with the knee backwards and the other forwards, one with a cloven hoof and one with a foot. It is an amalgamation of traits that make no sense together. Because Alidamara is the king of liars. He is the phantom knife. He is the knife in the dark. He is the mystery in the stars. He is the thing that is wrong. And the other gods don't like him for it. So they have a little scene. And Alidamara kind of turns. Turns isn't the word that I would use. Basically, a bunch of things are figured out, namely that Sunshine has her arm, her whatever the hell these are called, bracers, are differently shaped, which she knew because they knew all of her armor is misshapen because it was collected from all these different places. But one is dedicated to Pelor and one is dedicated to Melora. And Sunshine did not recognize the symbology there. And he says, well, you could add a third god to that. And it effectively turns Sunshine to one of his followers and changes both of her greaves to reflect his symbology. And he and Smalls have a little moment and they chat about some things that had happened before. And he is his thoroughly pragmatic, charismatic self that will never he'll never tell a complete truth. He will say it to your face and he will be sincere, but he'll never tell a complete truth. He'll never tell you every detail because that's the point. How can you become as great as me if you don't learn along the way? A little bit of that energy. And finally they leave and head back towards home. So now everyone is converging back at the manor, back at the home that they've been given. And they go inside and they see that Takko is asleep on the bed, face down, ass up. Only thing on is his boots and his cloak of billowing in the wind, and spreading the fart that he just let out in his sleep. That was put in by Takko's character, not me. And he's not asleep because he's asleep and he's wiped out. He's asleep because he's unconscious. That constitution check was not how good are you at the sexing. That constitution check was, does the prostitute's poison work to knock you out enough to where they can steal all your stuff? And that's where we cut the session. So, yeah. Next week, we'll talk about what exactly was stolen and why Takko cares so much. And what they had to do about it. And some of the next session is next week is when we'll really get into more of how I guide players or attempt to guide players into taking the reigns, but also always presenting mysteries. I always want there to be something that the players don't know about. When you reveal to them something strange and unique, the reaction is one of two things. Either they're going to go with it or they're not. If they go with it, hey, cool, you just got a side quest. If they don't, hey, that's fine. You'll get through it. You'll present something more down the line. And it can also kind of figure into, what do these players really like? What are they invested in? What is the thing that's going to pull them into this game and say, hey, this is a cool idea. I want to know more about that. Urza thinks something's going on with the king and wants to know what's going on with the history of the city. Takko's just having a good time, but gets stuck in it because it's what happens to him. He gets stuck in it all the time. Matt wants power so that he can kill more goblins and set more fires. And Sunshine and Smalls are just trying to get through all this shit, whatever the hell that means. So, yeah. It was a good session. It was a good time. These last couple sessions were a really good time. It was very clear that the campaign was winding down, unfortunately. So that was hard, but it was really a good time for me to realize, okay, it's fine. Let's just bring this out to some sort of satisfying end. And unfortunately, that didn't get to happen. We got one session short of what I would really consider a satisfying ending, but it's fine. So yeah, like I said, next week we'll talk about Takko and what was going on with him and how they decide to deal with these singing. The singing moths, you mean? Because the singing moths never really came up in this game. It's funny actually. The singing moths hasn't come up since y'all's campaign, actually. Talking to Table Talk, the first time I ran this campaign, there was a fun side character. I'll talk about the singing moss in a later video. They are really an entertaining idea I had when I was like 14 and very into musical theater, and said, this just needs to be a continuing thing. Next week we'll also talk about the Yellow Pages and why they exist and what they are, because the players didn't know about them until they got here. So yeah, we'll talk about the Yellow Pages and Takko and what they decide to do. But in the meantime, my office hours are closed. Y'all have a wonderful week. We'll talk next Wednesday, 7 p.m. GMT. No questions asked. Oh. All right. Bye.